Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Liong Mah Designs GSD V2. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Also, thank you to the gentleman who loaned this knife for review. This will go back to him when I am done. So when I unboxed this, I made a mistake in assuming that all of the variants were just really expensive. I was not looking at the complete range of options. This knife has a lot of options. This particular one comes in about in the middle. This is this fat carbon space coral, which is really interesting actually. If we look close, you can see there are all those little lines. But this one here is priced at, I think, about $480. But the base price on this model, if you do one side carbon fiber and one side titanium, right, with the frame lock, which is an exposed frame lock, which is different than this guy, which is more of like a faux bolster lock, that actually comes in at about $325, which is substantially less than I had pegged this for. There's also a full titanium version, also an exposed frame lock, coming in at $380. And then your sort of bolster lock or faux bolster lock variants like this, I think kind of start at $440. There's also a Mokatai and Damasteel version that comes in at over $900. So depending on which you're wanting to pick up, I mean, he definitely has less expensive variants. I will link this right down below so that you guys can check it out, all the different versions that are available if you want to. It does help my channel when you use my links, but that is entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement. Overall length is coming in at about 7.75 inches. Blade length is coming in at an impressive, that's really impressive. It's almost exactly just shy of 3.5. It's like 3.4 inches. Cutting edge is coming in. Can we call that 3.3? I think we will. 3.3 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. You can see here, this is it's approaching where I would call full size, right? 7.75 is kind of weird. I kind of say 8 inches is full size. Still feels like a full size knife, just a little more compact. Not quite the same size as the Rat 1. How about we put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Oops, sorry. There we go. Yeah, definitely a little bit shorter than the PM2, a little bit longer than the Para 3. Last but not least, let's go ahead and put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian. Sorry about the rumbling there. Or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. Definitely about the same, almost exactly. It's a little bit longer than the Benchmade Bug Out. Has a similar profile, but is absolutely more robust. How is the action on this knife? To my knowledge, these knives are still being made by Riot. There is a little tiny bit of double clutch unless you bypass the flipper tab completely and get the very last little bit of that choily kind of area to fall on your finger, but it's kind of hard to get that done. If you drop this to the flipper tab, the detent ball is there. It's like, this is right here. So it's there. It's just really close, and it can rock backwards. If you get it right, you should be okay. The problem is that you really have to get that initial, this is only an issue if you're trying to disengage it and close it with one hand without using your index finger to push it down right here, right? You got to really get that initial shake because the action is very smooth, right? But it's also very tight. I'm sure that it can be adjusted, right? Your experience with this knife will vary, and it will probably get better over time, but it's a little bit double clutchy, right? That's a tiny little kind of nitpick thing. So you can reverse flick it. You kind of have to dig at that fuller. The flipper tab, doing a push button or a light switch works just fine. It's exactly what I would expect. The action's very good. It's running on bearings. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here that it's about the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Yeah, there we go. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so my voice might sound a little funny too. Yeah, it's pretty compact. It's really almost exactly the same. Body-wise versus the Spyderco Para 3. It's definitely shorter than the PM2. It's nowhere near as tall as either. That hump in the PM2 and Para 3 is definitely going to clear it. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. Oh, it did stand up. I was about to say that it doesn't want to stand up because of the way that it's not really a backspacer. The seam construction on this knife is. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Blade stock thickness coming in at 135 thousandths, which is pretty much middle of the road as far as the knife world is concerned. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get all my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable and very backwards today, thanks to my daughter. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The pivot is a T8. The lock bar insert screw is a T8. We have a T8 screw here for the overlay material. And if there are additional screws underneath, I'm going to assume that they are also T8, but I am not convinced that there are any additional screws. I think it's actually just the pocket clip screw that goes through here. There may be one that I'm missing. In any case, this is not going to be a difficult knife to take apart. It should be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Just make sure you've got a place to put your hardware and you should be good to go. It's got a few extra screws versus what I would consider to be minimal hardware, but that's not really that big of a deal. Weight. Did we weigh it? I don't think we did. Let's go ahead and weigh it. All right. GSD V2. This version coming in at 4.06 ounces. I think obviously the full titanium one's going to weigh a little bit more. The version that is titanium and all one-side carbon fiber is going to weigh a little bit less. Either way, I don't find this a super offensive weight for a knife of this size. I mean, we have 3.4 inches of blade, 4 ounces of body weight, right? You should be okay unless you wear wind paper pants. What is wind paper? Wind pants or wax paper pants. This knife will be heavy, but I don't think it's going to cause a problem for most people. This is very Liong Mah, and when I say that, I mean it's very stylish, right? He does a good job of capturing that really simple and sort of minimalist aesthetic at first glance, and then when you look closely, there are more details to appreciate. One of those details, let's zoom in, let's test this camera out. One of those details, of course, is the beautiful orange peel texturing that we are getting on the titanium. If you went to look at that price, right? Yeah, we're looking at titanium and M390 and then various, materials for the overlays, right? This is much more than just the materials, right? You can definitely get these materials for lower price points. Are they executed this way? No. And this execution is oftentimes why it's so pricey. Right? I mean, you can slap together some ugly titanium and M390 that's got a bead blast finish on it, right? And charge way less money. If it takes less effort to make, it's going to cost less. The materials themselves are not the full, right? I mean, I have to keep saying that because there's new people all the time, right? Yeah, I love the orange peel finish on this titanium. It's beautiful. The seam, well, it's basically seamless. The transition from the titanium to this space coral, whatever the heck that is this. I do like this material. It's just you really have to look close to see the pattern in it. This is all perfect. I mean, this is Riot, and it's also Liong Mah's design language, right? I mean, that's just how it's going to be. We have a beautiful hand rub satin finish on the blade. The blade is a simple drop point blade with a little fuller here. We have a nice swedge, right? It's really good EDC profile. And truthfully, it's just kind of a nice, the whole thing is really easy to hang on to and fairly comfortable. I mean, it's nothing mind-blowing. It's pretty much knife handle, and you're kind of crammed in here. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. It's just a smaller knife, right? So if you have hands that are similar to mine, if you wear an XL glove, you're going to be a little crammed in here. A little smaller, you're going to be okay. A little bigger, you're definitely going to be crammed. So the edges are all nicely chamfered down though, and this pocket clip is not offensive at all. Not my favorite style of clip, but it's not one that's creating a major hotspot. I do appreciate the length that jimping extends out to. You can also choke up a little bit, maybe with one knuckle. I wouldn't go two. You can get some of the meat of your finger up on that blade. The lock bar is very easy to disengage thanks to some generous scalloping on either side. So really easy, honestly, really comfortable to hold, to manipulate. This is a knife that will probably serve as more of a general day-to-day kind of simple cutting task knife for the people who pick it up. But if you wanted to use it for an extended period of time for heavy cutting, you could absolutely do that. And I mean heavy cutting, like cutting a lot, not taking the point and like jamming it into a crevice and trying to pry something. That's not cutting. That's just being an idiot with your knife. If you're going to cut, if you're going to process, thick styrofoam, rubber, cardboard, or even wood for a long period of time, yeah, you could do this. I think there are better knives, that are better suited for stuff like that, but you could. This knife is plenty durable as far as, the general parameters of what a cutting tool should be used for. So yeah, I love his pivot design. I always comment about that. It's the same style of pivot every single time, and it just looks really good. Liong Mah knives are always just really stylish. Blade is perfect. As far as like execution, all the lines and everything, right? The final cutting bevel's not wonky or anything. We don't have any weird lines going in different directions. If you're going to do a hand rub satin finish, you better make it consistent. Because if you get one line going up here, then it doesn't look good, right? Everything is going the same way, and it looks really, really good. Edges up here, a little bit sharp. Not so much though. If you strike ferro rod off your knife or something like that, then maybe you'll appreciate it. Your fingers usually aren't going to find their way up there most of the time. Cutting geometry does get down to a reasonably thin edge. This is going to be just a good, simple slicer, poker, right? Day-to-day blade. We have the Liong Mah logo right here. We have a little bit of a contrast inside the fuller here. It's a little bit, I don't know if they bead blasted it just to give it a different look versus the rest of the knife. It looks fine. And then M390 over here. Liong Mah always does a good job of keeping the unnecessary, billboarding off of the knives. I don't mind the logo. I don't mind of course, the steel. They're clarifying what steel it is. I think that's fine. But yeah, everything looks good. Let's see here. Moving on, we have, so I did not realize initially that this was not an integral. I remember looking at some of the more expensive, like the $485 ones, and thinking, oh, this is an integral. No wonder it's $485. And then I was like, that's actually a pretty good deal. I mean, I've got a Liong Mah integral, my model. Is it the Model 18? I don't know why I have such a hard time remembering that. I love that knife. I bought it, but it's an actual integral, meaning the handle is all one piece of titanium. It was milled from a single block. This is actually two separate pieces of titanium, but that seam is so subtle that I did not realize it when just looking at the pictures, right? So then when I realized that, I was like, $485, that's a lot of money. Well, I didn't realize there were less expensive variants, and a lot of times with these, you're paying for, I guess, the scale material. Quite a bit of difference there. I'm glad that there are less expensive versions, but a lot of these are priced as if they are integrals. So some of the higher priced ones, I'm like, cool. And it's definitely like Riot/Liong Mah execution. Really, really good. Really, really stylish. They're using the premium materials. But we're into if this was an integral kind of territory, right? So you have to really, really want the special overlay materials, This does look good, though. They did a really nice job. And this is all radius back here. It meets together in an absolutely perfect radius spine, I guess. He also does a great job with the lanyard thing, right? In this case, it's a little bar that's totally out of the way, and you don't have to look at it, right? The lanyard people, you can attach your didgeridoos or whatever it is you got hanging off the back of there. But for the rest of us, we don't have to look at it, and the pocket clip can be mounted in the right place, which is, it's just optimized for the design. The pocket clip is very good, other than I don't like the ceramic balls. I find them pinchy. Some people really like them. I don't like them very much, but it does come in and out of the pocket. You just got to fight it a little bit. Carry depth is good. That's all you're going to see hanging out of the pocket. This is recessed slightly into the scale material, which is cool. I don't know that there's really a whole lot else that I can talk about there. I do prefer the bolster lock versions because you don't have to worry about where you're putting your fingers when you're flipping it. You're pushing on the scale and not the lock, which is great. That's why it's a bummer to see that these start so high at like $440 just for plain fat carbon or something like that. But yeah, these are the ones I like more. If you don't care about that, then yeah, you can definitely save yourself some money going with the just the frame lock versions. There is a stop pin located in its traditional place, and there is heavy shouldering. That's deep in there. It's nice. I like that. No blade play up, down, left, or right. That's what I expect from Riot. No pivot lash, consistent action in here, and a very nice clicky detent. Love to feel that. This is, when you do this, right, when you have a seam construction and this little U shape, it's like he is just daring the blade to be off center, because you're going to see it. If that blade is not dead perfect, you're going to notice. And it is. It's dead perfect. That's cool. That's Liong Mah and Riot. Again, the execution there. We can get these materials, right? Save for the space coral, which is usually probably limited to higher price tiers. We can get titanium and M390 for less. Can you get it executed like this for less? No, definitely not. Not even, I mean, Tucson's doing amazing stuff, but are they doing this? No, they are not. I've seen some very impressive things, right? And their pricing is really, really good. And there's a lot of other companies, right? Now, if you don't value these elements, right? If you don't see value in them, you can personally not value them. But does it cost more money to do things like the orange peel, right? Getting the, like executing all of this stuff in a way that it's going to be consistent, right? You're going to get that level of perfection every single time. Yeah, it's factually more expensive to do stuff like that, right? Otherwise, we would see it everywhere, and we don't. Now, does 440 to 480, that's about the median, right? Does that feel fair for these? That feels high, right? Happy to see that you can get the full tie one, and it's textured, right? They have like this area right here is textured. They still do the orange peel, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's nice to see that one at 380. I think that's pretty fair. That's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck here. Had he done one just like this, except for the inlay material was carbon fiber, and he had that at 380 bucks, man, that would have been pretty spectacular, right? Had he been about 40 less on everything, it would have been a lot more impressive. But these ones that get up closer to $500 are pretty questionable, because it's just like, I don't, I know, the roughly the parameters of what this is costing to create, right? And there's just some dramatic jumps just to have this material, right? So it's coming from the person who bought the most expensive version of the Model 18, which was well over $1,000 just for the materials, those, right? So you have to take what I say with a grain of salt. Overall, the GSD V2, I think if you get the right version, is a recommendable knife. It's just not, it does not have a mind-blowing price tag. But are you getting more than its true competition? And again, I'm not talking about other knives just using the same materials. I'm talking about its actual competition in the same quality and execution zone, right? There's a lot of other stuff out there that's pretty competitive, right? You can get some pretty awesome stuff under $400. So this knife is, it's going. It's not going hard though, right? It's not going 110%. It's cool. I think generally, and again, it's the titanium frame lock version, I think, is where we're really getting the best value at $380. But even still, it's not the most impressive thing in the whole world. Still though, generally speaking, recommendable knife. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. You can find it there in my recommended knives playlist, along with the other knives that I genuinely recommend. Thanks again to the gentleman who sent this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.